Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's second department budget hearing. We will have a presentation tonight from the Hartford Fire Department and the Emergency Services and Telecommunications Department. I am Councilman Amilcar Hernandez. I am Chair of the Operations, Management, Budget, and Government Accountability Committee. This meeting is broadcasting live on HPA-TV's Xfinity Government Channel 96 and Frontier Government Channel 6032. It will also be streamed via hpa-tv.org, the HPA-TV Facebook page, and HPA-TV Apple TV, Amazon TV, and Roku TV apps. It will also be made available on the HPA-TV YouTube channel. I would like to acknowledge my peers present here today. To my far right, I have Councilwoman Kelly Bilodeau. On the screen, we have Councilman Alex Thomas. To my left, Councilman John Gale. And to my right, it's Assistant Majority Leader TJ Clark. Tonight's first presentation will be the Hartford Fire Department. I will ask Fire Chief Ronnie Barco to introduce the leadership that he brought with him, and then you could start your presentation. Thank you. Give me 1 second, Chief. Mike, were people able to hear that? For those watching on TV or any of the media or the stream, please give us a minute. We have some technical difficulties.
Almost. I think you got it. It is on.
Chief Barco, if you don't mind, would you mind starting again and introducing your team? I want to make sure that folks watching can appreciate, the leadership team that you brought with you as well.
Not a problem, sir. To my immediate left is Assistant Chief Daniel Riley, in charge of support services. To my immediate right is Ewan Sharif, who is the Fire Marshal for the City of Hartford. And to my far right is Captain Jose Rivera, who is in charge of our Special Services Division for the City of Hartford and Community Engagement. My name is Rodney Barco. I'm the 38th Fire Chief for the Hartford Fire Department and Emergency Manager. Thank you, Council, for having me here tonight to present our fiscal year 2025 budget presentation. So our first slide is the mission statement for the City of Hartford Fire Department. Just to sum that up, in the short version, we are all hazard, all providing department. We do everything from EMS to fire to hazardous materials, confined space to special rescue. So as I tell all my family members and the citizens in Hartford, if you have any incidents and you need assistance, call the fire department. If we can't fix it, we'll get someone out to fix it for you. Again, we're all hazard fire department, and we deal in all types of emergencies. Here is our organizational chart on the next slide, starting with myself, the fire chief, having two assistant chiefs, Assistant Chief Harry Tullier, who is in charge of operations. That's the men and women that you see on the street every day who put out fires and do service calls for EMS and all sorts of things. Under that, you have my executive assistant, Lucille Remy Martin, my executive officer, Captain Dave Cody, who's in charge of maintaining our fire department facilities. Next up is our chief's aide, Lieutenant Jesus Lopez, who's in charge of all our personal protective equipment, station wear, and supplies needed to maintain the firehouse. Under him is our EAP coordinator, Lieutenant Ray Morgan, who's in charge of our employee assistance program. Under our assistant chief of operations, you have a tour commander. There are 4 of those tour commanders who are all deputy chiefs. Under those tour commanders, you have 2 districts, District 1 and District 2, and each district has a district chief who is a bona fide incident commander at any call for service. Under District 1, you have the South End engine companies, Engine 1, 8, 9, 10, and 15s, and a ladder companies, which is Ladder 2 and Ladder 6, and our heavy rescue unit, which is called the Tactical Unit. In District 2, you also have 4 district chiefs, and the North End engine companies are Engine 5, Engine 2, Engine 7, 11s, 14s, and Engine 16, and you have 3 ladder companies, Ladder 3, 4, and 5. Our special units is 1 boat, which is called Marine 1. We utilize that boat whenever there is an incident on the Connecticut River. We either utilize a north or south boat landing. You can see our heavy hazmat materials team. That's a technical rescue team. So that's usually run by TAC 1. Those guys are trained in hazardous materials, and they're trained in technical rescue. That's everything from trench rescue, confined space, vehicle and heavy machinery rescue, high angle rescue, building collapse, and swift water rescue. Also, we have our rehabilitation unit and our decontamination unit. So anytime we have a mass incident where there's hazardous materials involved, we can roll out our decontamination unit to the scene and start deconning people that way. Under our Assistant Chief of Support Services, which is Assistant Chief Daniel Riley, we have Management Services. Under that, it's Leandro Siri, who doubles as our accreditation manager, and he's our SME for our radio infrastructure. Fire Prevention Division, you have Deputy Chief Ewan Sharif, who is the fire marshal for that division. Training Division, you have Deputy Chief James Erickson, who does the refresher for EMS and hazmat and fire suppression. Equipment Maintenance Division, Superintendent Dan Madden, he's in charge of that division that repairs all of our vehicles and some portions of the fire stations. The Fire Alarm Communication and Technology, that division deals with all of our computers in-house and also the traffic signals around the city, crosswalks, and they also assist HPD with some of their cameras. The next slide is our 2024 highlights. As you can see at the top, you have myself. I started under Chief Freeman in 2018. I served as the Assistant Chief for 3 years. I became Interim Chief of the Hartford Fire Department 2021 until this date. Previously, before that, I served 23 years on the fire department, came up through the ranks, still live in the city, love this place. Don't think I ever go anywhere, but that's my short history. Renovations to Station 5 is moving forward. So Engine 5 is located at 129 Signet Street. That station was constructed between 1938 and 1940, which replaced the existing structure from 1879. So that gives you just a brief preview of how old our firehouses and locations actually are. So right now it's still in the design phase. We have made significant progress. We're hoping to start putting that project out to bid before the end of summer and getting that construction underway. But some of the difficulties or some of the issues with Engine 5 is, we call it the ramp, that's the front concrete slab where the fire trucks enter, has some cracks in it. There's some issues with the foundation and barrier walls. Interior structural components, some of them are compromised, just old and deteriorating. One of the interesting things with Engine 5 is it's a small parcel of land, so under the new renovations, we're gonna make it code compliant, ADA compliant, and this will be one of the first firehouses in the city where we compartmentalize the sleeping quarters to encompass individual rooms. So normally, all of our firehouses are military structure where there's a actual squad bay and partitions between all the bunks. So this will be the first firehouse where the bunk room is compartmentalized. We're hoping to graduate 15 new recruits on April 18th. That's next Thursday. Hopefully, my XO sent you all the invite. But it's been a rough 18 weeks for these 24 recruits, now 15. It might end up being 12. 3 of the recruits had to retest. This is their final go-around for testing, and hopefully we'll get those results by Tuesday of next week. In terms of some of the highlights, over 740 smoke alarms, 236 smoke and carbon monoxide alarms were installed in the city of Hartford at no cost to the residents. So that cachet of smoke alarms usually comes from the Red Cross, is a donation that goes to our special services unit. And honestly, with the work that these 3 individuals do in that unit for the city and city residents is short of phenomenal. So anytime a resident calls up or they visit the city website under fire department and special services, they can request our folks to come out and install smoke detectors, I'm sorry. They also distribute flyers with a QR code that has that information on it. And like I said, again, you can go on the city website if you're a city resident and get free smoke detectors installed. So out of the 32,114 people reached with the fire and life safety public education, that was combined through NRZs and city schools as well. During COVID, the Special Services Division was instrumental in still providing these services, whether it be Zoom or through apparatus displays. So what our division does is they'll get a request in from either someone's family, their grandfather or grandmother is turning 90 and they love the fire department, so they would schedule a ride by for a fire truck to go by an individual's house just to wish them happy birthday, toot the horn, blast the lights. So certain things like that, those requests that come in from the community go straight to the Special Services Division, and those folks handle those requests on a daily basis. They also partner with Faith-Based Initiative and HID develop a strong working relationship with the community. So the faith-based organizations are those organizations like Know Thy Neighbor. What those organizations do is they go to different communities, they figure out what those problems are in the communities, and they come up with solutions. The fire department usually sits on those meetings, which is twice a month, and they offer input and suggestion, and they help to carry that meeting with those community organizations. So we had over 30,000 calls for service in 2023, which is, something to be said. We're the busiest fire department in Connecticut. Next one. So some of our strategic initiatives is, one of them is employee engagement. And so how we accomplish the employee engagement, one of those things that we do, we just purchased a software called SurveyMonkey. And what we do with SurveyMonkey in terms of needs and wants for the fire department, we'll send that out to the membership and have the membership input what it is they think they're lacking in or what it is they would like to see. And once we get that survey back, we'll develop a training program. So we try to give the guys and girls of the department exactly what type of training they need. Also, through employee engagement, we develop committees like Research and Development, Apparatus Committee, and Health and Safety Committee. And what those things do is, if anyone in the department has an idea or they have a tool that they think could benefit the fire department or help our membership do their jobs more effectively, we send that information to the R&D committee. And so what they do is they take all the information, they reach out to the vendors, they get samples of, let's say it's a brand new titanium hammer. They'll compare this titanium hammer to other hammers and make recommendations as to what would be best for the department. Now, a lot of things are considered when they do that, the durability of the equipment and the cost as well. We also partner with Local 760, the membership, the collective bargaining unit, whether it's good, bad, or indifference, because a lot of members bring them issues and problems or things they want to see changed. And we have a meeting once a month with the local, and we kind of figure out which direction or what right looks like for the department. So there's several different venues for employee engagement. So our annual performance review, FireStat, that's our monthly review of our statistical analysis for calls for service for the fire department. So we do that review every third Thursday of the month unless something else comes up that might prevent us from doing that particular FireStat review. Public education and community engagement. This is done through SSU, through school systems, NRZs, apparatus displays, and also companies just engaging in the community. So you might not see it as much in the winter months, but in the summer months, you can almost go by any firehouse and see that door open. And you can see it's a welcoming environment for the community to engage with their firefighters, especially some of the smaller children. They might come in with a flat tire on their bike. Firefighters will, patch up the tire and blow it up and send them on their way, or they just come into the firehouse to use the bathroom or get a drink of water or just chop it up with the firefighters. So we always tell people it's your building, it's a public building, and they're always welcome to come in. In particular fire stations that have basketball hoops, we would let community kids come in and play basketball. So the firehouse has always been a staple of the community and a safe environment. So that's another way we engage in the community as well. So facility repairs and renovation, our capital improvement project, that's one that's been really ongoing within the last 5 years or maybe 8 years since Chief Freeman was here. And the city has been very good at keeping the funding going for these projects. So we recently just finished Station 11. That was, I think, was it 12 million? Was it 12 million for Station 11? It was pretty up there. I don't have the exact figures, but the guys really appreciate what the city put into making their quality of life a lot better. It's one of the things we also done with our capital improvement plan was we've involved what is called the house captain. So each fire station has one member who's usually a captain who's in charge of all 4 groups. So we've tasked that captain with asking his membership what they would like to see in terms of renovations and what's their biggest issue with the firehouse. And then we take that information along with that captain and then along with city leadership and whoever the vendor is, and we have meetings every month during the design phase so that everyone has an input on what they want their firehouse to look like. So our radio project is one of our, it's one of those things that's near and dear to us. So in 2015, the Board of Inquiry released findings in which HFD should conduct a study of our radio system to see what works best for us. So 2015, that was after the death of Kevin Bell. In 2016, we developed a radio committee spearheaded by SPM Siri and a retired DCA Wright. So during that radio committee, we applied for an AFG grant, Assistance to Firefighter grant. In the sum of $993,000 we were awarded, and we were able to replace 95 portable radios, 30 mobile radios, and the difference between the portables are the hand radios, the mobile radios are the ones in the apparatus. And then we did 21 in-vehicle repeaters, which is a piece of equipment that helps us transmit our signals. In 2017, those two gentlemen in that committee did extensive testing between the Harris radio and the Motorola radio, and they found out that, you know, Motorola was the radio for the department. 2018, SPM Siri and DCA Wright received training from FDNY, so they went down to FDNY to get training on our new radios, and then they also went to Boston to receive training on the new radios. So we went live with the radio system in 2021, and then we applied for an AFG grant for additional radios in the amount of $274,000, which gave us an additional 45 radios. So since doing that, one of the stipulations to the study was that you had to have an accountability system. So, and that was one of the reasons we went with Motorola, because they had a digital accountability system. And what that is that that's a system that we use at every incident that tracks every firefighter on that scene. And it's a digital touchscreen program. And so with that program, other municipalities started looking at Hartford. And since then, we've presented to various municipalities such as Providence Fire Department, East Providence, Yukon, New Britain, Danbury, West Hartford, New Haven, Newington. We presented to East Hartford, Broadbrook Fire Department, Long Hill Fire Department, and Trumbull. So a number of fire departments, Chicago, and Tennessee Valley in Tennessee. So they've all come to Hartford to see our accountability system and how we utilize it. And that's thanks to the work of those guys that were part of this radio committee. And so, again, when we talk about the talent and the ingenuity of the city of Hartford and the fire department, that's just one example. So that's why the radio project right now is so near and dear to us. Also, we partner with the local 760. So when we got these new digital radios, we ran into a couple hiccups because essentially what you're doing is you have a digital radio going into an analog system, and you know that portion of the system is being worked on as we speak by AS&T, and they've done a phenomenal job in trying to get everyone up to speed. So moving on to the equipment upgrades. So most of our equipment upgrades include fire apparatus, tools and equipment, and PPE. So as you all know, our fire apparatuses are somewhat old, but with the help of the city, we came up with an apparatus replacement plan. Yeah.
Take a break,
It's a tie.
I know it's hot in here, we know.
It's a tie. I'm trying to look sharp with the tie and keep it. But it's not doing me justice right now. So the equipment upgrade. So one of the things that we've started to upgrade was our fire apparatus, because our fire apparatus is, it's past its life expectancy in engine hours and in years. Right now, we have 2 apparatuses ready to go because of the partnership and the generosity of the city, and that'll be going to Engine 7 and Engine 1. Our tools and equipment, we make sure that the tools and equipment are the best that they can be for the job that we're doing. And that goes back to the R&D committee. So their whole purpose is to seek out new technology, new equipment, and make sure that the department is operating with, you know, the best possible equipment. Our PPE, which is personal protective equipment, that's the gear that you see our firefighters wearing when they go inside a structure fire. Right now, we're looking at particulate prevention hoods, which, you know, they keep out carbon. So the big talk in the fire service is cancer prevention. So we're, you know, that's a new type of gear that's on the market right now. It's really in its infancy, but every department, including ours, we're looking at cancer blocking firefighting gear. So again, with the initiative of our R&D and Health and Safety Committee, we've been looking at different vendors to upgrade our current gear to this new particulate blocking gear. So accountability in identifying high hazard buildings. So the company level inspections is where we first start with identifying high hazard buildings. So each year, the Fire Marshal's Division, they send out a list of properties that each company, our 17 companies, can go throughout the city and do what we call fire safety surveys. So the companies familiarize themselves with these particular properties. And if they suspect a code violation, they forward that information to the Fire Marshal's Division, and then the Fire Marshal Division follows up on that property. And they either make sure those code violations get corrected, or they follow up and cite those individuals. And, you know, we've been pretty good now that we have an additional 7 fire prevention lieutenants. We've been able to kind of reduce those numbers in terms of doing these inspections. So we also have our tier 1, 2, and 3 reports uploaded into our mobile data computers. Those are the computers on the apparatuses. So you take somewhere like, let's say CVS on Blue Hills, if they have any chemicals inside of their store, they send us the material safety data sheet, they send it to headquarters, and then what we do, we take those sheets and upload it into the MDT. So when the fire company responds to that particular address, they can look on the computer and see what's, well, you know, what type of hazards that address may have. So in terms of professional development, we also have our CAD training. We have professional development for the FAC division and our equipment maintenance division. And so in terms of CAD training, what we're going to do is partner with ES&T to have Central Square come in and teach members from the fire department and members from ES&T all about Central Square, the CAD. Because again, what happens is you have attrition and people leave, so that institutional knowledge is gone. So what we're trying to do is reestablish those components so that the people that are going to be here for quite some time know exactly what it is they need to do. In our FAC division, they also just came back from training in terms of how to manipulate our MDTs and some traffic light signal repair as well. So our equipment maintenance division, they're scheduled to go out to Ohio, where our Suff and Ladder company vendor is, and receive some training, some more specialized training on how to repair our ladder trucks. And then they'll be going to Ocala, Florida, to learn how to repair our engines. So our quality assurance is assuring that our incident reports are maintained and documented properly. Our fire marshal reports are maintained and documented properly. In each of those divisions, you have a supervisor who, at least once a month, grabs 2 or 3 of those reports and make sure they're documented correctly, make sure they're grammatically correct, because some of those things are maybe used in court cases. In terms of our EMS, we have a EMS quality assurance person who looks at those patient care reports and makes sure everything is properly documented in that patient care report. So the training for the men and women of the Hartford Fire Department is actually mandated OSHA training, right? So the fire training department members of the suppression division, those personnel have to remain proficient in the following areas, and that's hose line deployment, hose stream management, search and rescue, fire ground communications, horizontal, vertical ventilation, self-rescue, rapid intervention, proper ladder deployment, forcible entry, and also incident management. And that is done through what we call live burns at our training academy. So what happens is the training chief brings down a task force, and that's 3 engines, and they deploy these individuals through certain scenarios, and they all take turns. We have a burn building, we call it. They'll set some little fires in the basement, 1st floor, and the 3rd floor. And don't be concerned, it's a concrete building, so, but they go in and they do these evolutions, and they get signed off for the year. And that typically, if weather permitting, goes on once a year, every year. So as we stated before, the capital improvement plan is just our firehouses in succession. We've identified which firehouses need repair. There you go. So international accreditation, we've just been recommended for accreditation for another year. And the next steps to accreditation is that the accreditation team will come to Hartford. They'll look at our strategic plan, standard to cover, and then our SOC, which is, I'm sorry, our standard to cover. So once they come in and look at all these things, and they check us off, then we go down to Florida and sit in front of the review board, and then we'll be officially accredited for another year. So the next slide is our budget recommended for 2025. As you can see, it's $41,415. Our overtime budget was reduced by $1,230,000 in anticipation of this next class coming in. An additional $103,000 is for fire hose and SCBA equipment. So those 2 items were usually bundled into the VET request. This year, for some reason, we had to put it in the business case, and since it's an operational need, those got approved. So in terms of the total reduction, like we had class 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28. And those growth increments are step increases from their base pay to their top pay. The decrease in attrition is similar to the number of personnel leaving just later in fiscal year 2025. So the reduction in shift coverage in overtime is 1,032,000. The reduction in 212 is 198,000, and the total reduction in overtime is 1,002,000. Additional 103,000, like I said, is for the fire hose and the SCBA. So that's a continued yearly replacement program. So which really is no overall increase in the budget, just a change from one line item, which was VET, to another line item, which is fire general funds. So next one. So the areas of focus to ensure the readiness of the future of emergencies. So what that encompasses is maintaining our current fleet and then updating our training methods. So one of the things we talked about was the apparatus replacement, and that's part of maintaining our fleet. And this is why our equipment maintenance division is so crucial in its purpose. At any time, day or night, if we have a breakdown in one of our apparatuses, we have all on-call equipment maintenance division personnel who will come out and service that fire truck or staff car. And if it is deemed to be inserviceable, like it's going to take a couple of days to fix it, then we swap out to one of our reserve pieces. So what that is they'll go down to the machine shop, take all the gear and equipment that they need off the frontline piece and put it on a reserve. And that's why it's so important for us to have apparatuses for every company plus backup apparatuses, because at no point can we not say we don't have it, so we can't do the job. Some of the tools and equipment are being updated, as I stated earlier. That's a R&D division. That's their job, is to continually look for the best and the most efficient way for us to do the job and the tools that accompany that. Training the membership, as we stated before, and included in that training the membership is the training of future firefighters. The cadet program and the Explorer program has seen a tremendous growth in the participation and partnership with PAL and gyms and line firefighters willing to share the free time to assist with the development of the cadets, and the Explorers has been exponential. Now, in the past, some of the things that we're doing now we haven't implemented, and one of those things is a ride program. So individual cadets, if it's a weekend, they get to spend 4 hours at a firehouse and ride along with the firefighters for calls for service, EMS, fire, whatever it is, but they get to experience exactly the same thing that the firefighters experience. And that volunteer aspect of it from the men and women on the line has been phenomenal. Every officer that we've asked has been willing to volunteer their time. Not just so much while they're working, but their off time too. So like on a Wednesday or Thursday when we have the cadets or explorers, they're willing to come down and assist with teaching these folks. So it's been a huge success, and right now we have, for our explorers, we have 9 African Americans, 8 Hispanics, and we have 12 Hispanic females interested in becoming firefighters. So our Explorer program has been a success. So our PP management and distribution will continue as necessary. Turnout gear and stationwear, we distribute those as needed. We have a biannual gear repair plan. We have a vendor come in either to the north end fire station or south end fire station and repair any gear that's needed. Our overtime management, we do our best to kind of curb the overtime, but to some degree is difficult to do because the positions in the firehouse are contractual. So minimum manning 72, and when someone calls out or is injured or on vacation, you have to fill that position with overtime. So ensure our ISO rating compliance. Out of a score of 105 points, the last rating that we had was 95.5. And so just to put that in perspective, when you receive an ISO rating, you receive 10 points for communications. That's communications with the fire department and communications with dispatch. You receive 50 points for the fire department, and you receive 40 points for water supply, and the extra 5 points is for community engagement. So our apparatus replacement plan is ongoing. Again, as apparatus get towards the end of life, we have a plan to replace them. Facility repair, as I stated before, that's ongoing as well. And then the last page is the staff composition of all employees. As you can see, our non-residents are 47%, our HFD residents are 53%. We're pretty much even across the board in ethnicity. Hispanic 35, African American 32, Caucasian or white 33. And then the gender, 5% female, 95% male, and we're trying to increase those numbers as well. And that's it for our presentations. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Chief Barco. I would like at this time to open the floor for our council colleagues to ask any questions or make any statements. We will be doing possibly 2 rounds of questions. On the first round, we're going to ask you 1 to 2 questions, and then we have the opportunity on the second round to ask you any follow-up questions. So at this point, I'd like to start from my right side to see if there's any questions or comments. All right, so Councilwoman Mali Rosado.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Chief, how are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you. And first of all, I want to congratulate you on your leadership. Lately, I've been talking with a lot of employees from various departments, just to see how things are going. And so everything I've heard from you are all positive, not one negative thing. So that's good to hear. Do we still have any EMT training for any of our firefighters?
So
I always ask that at every council budget. I'd love to see our firefighters, yes, first responders, to there be a team for EMTs.
So we're not certified to the EMT level. I think that's something that we're going to be discussing in the future. We're certified to MRT level, but there are some folks in our department who are either EMTs or paramedics. The problem with that is when you're working in Hartford, you can only practice to the MRT level. But that is something worth exploring, and we've been talking about.
Okay. And so my other question, and then I'll ask you the other ones in the second round, is, and I also ask this at every budget meeting, so, and I'll give context on it. So one day I'm at Hartford Hospital, right, at 80 Seymour, and at the medical building, and there were 2 fire trucks there. And the guys were sitting there probably 15 minutes. So we're at Hartford Hospital. They dial 911. They dispatch our firefighters there when the emergency room is probably, 500 feet away. Are we still doing that?
Unfortunately, ma'am, we are, because I'm not sure if it's a liability issue, but there are certain things that a higher level of care can do. So if someone's in a doctor's office, I'm not sure if they're fully equipped with whatever it is they need. That's a discussion I'll probably have to have with Dr. Jonro, who's our medical control director.
That would be great, because of course, Hartford Hospital doesn't pay the city of Hartford any taxes, but yet we have to use taxpayers' dollars to send out our fire trucks. And the emergency room is right there. they have ambulances right there, so our firefighters basically have to wait for an ambulance or an EMT to come over and take over.
Yes, and 9 times out of 10, when you see those ambulances that's stationed at the hospital, it's usually because they brought a patient in, or they're helping to stabilize the patient, or finishing up paperwork. Most of the ones that respond to call for services are usually out on the street.
Okay. I'll have my other questions second round.
Thank you. Any
Thank you,
other
Chief.
questions? Councilwoman Bilidu?
Thank you for your presentation, and thank you to you and your team for the services you provide to the city every day. My question is, what was the biggest challenge you faced when creating this budget? Something maybe that is a main priority for you that you had to leave out of the budget?
So for us, when, like I said, the staffing is contractual. The operating budget, we definitely need, but there are some things that's not included in the budget that we have to put in business cases that's crucial. And so that's how we handle those challenges, but some of those things are so expensive, we just can't pull that money out of our budget because we won't be able to operate for the remainder of the fiscal year, so we put them in business cases. And that's probably the most challenging part, is trying to attain something that the fire department needs, but it's not budget friendly. So for instance, if we wanted to buy an apparatus, they're almost $1 million, and then the prices are going up for our ladder trucks from $1.2 million to like $3 million. So that's unsustainable that's not sustainable for us if we were to purchase out of our budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Majority Leader Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Chief. Thank you for your presentation. I had a couple of questions. In your budget, it states that there's standby pay. What is standby pay?
So standby pay is usually, it's for our SSU division, EMD, FMO. So like I stated earlier, if we have an apparatus that breaks down in the middle of the night, a mechanic has to come and service that. So standby pay is what that person receives from Tuesday to Tuesday to be at the ready in case something happens.
So like a holdover?
I'm sorry?
Like a holdover? If they already completed their 72-hour shift, you got to hold them over?
It's not like a holdover. They go home, but
Okay.
They'll be called back. So they pretty much put their life on hold for a week after hours in case something happens at the fire department and they need to be called back.
Is there overtime factored into that, or is that a set rate? Is that a contractual thing with the union?
Yep, yes, sir. The standby pay is a set rate that's contractual.
Okay. Do you know how often the men or the women are asked to be not held over, but be asked to put their life on the line?
So with the fire marshal's
On hold,
office-
sorry, not on the line,
Yeah.
on hold.
What's the rate for the fire marshals? So with the fire marshal's office, they have 18 fire prevention lieutenants, so it goes in rotation. So I think you have a primary and a secondary. So the first week, the primary, they would swap, so it's 2 weeks. So they would be expected to be on call for 2 weeks, and then they're off the other 16 weeks.
Okay. And second question, from your perspective, you've been fire department for 23 years. And I know there was some talk long time ago about the Public Safety Academy being developed here in Hartford. How can we, from your professional standpoint, work to build a public safety academy here in Hartford to help develop a pipeline?
So I believe that it can be accomplished, but we have to have the facilities to do that. Right now, I know there's talk for our capital improvement, and expanding or maybe redoing the training ground or Jennings Road to make it encompassing for fire, PD, and DPW. But I think the first step is finding the facilities to do that if we're going to actually have that. I mean, I'm sure we can get the staff. We have the programs because we run our own training academy for the firefighters. And I believe HPD runs their own training academy, so, and definitely ES&T trains their own people. So the potential is there, we just need the space to do it.
You have a ballpark as to how big that space needs to be?
I do not, sir.
My question was how, ballpark figure is how big the space needs to be. Is there any other municipality in the state that has a public safety academy?
Not that I'm aware of. Enfield.
Enfield does? Does that incorporate fire, police, emergency services, DPW?
I want to say it's just public safety, sir.
I'm sorry?
I want to say it's just public safety, police and fire.
Just police and fire? Okay. Okay, I'll save my next question
Thank you.
for the next round. Thank you.
Council President?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation, Chief Barco, and thank you for having your staff with you, or the command staff. So thank you very much for all that you guys do. We really appreciate, as a resident, your quick response and the response from, that you guys have provided for fire service in the city. Only thing I would like to see, Chief, is it would be nice to a little bit more increase in the female representation. I'm impressed when I see fire and the guys come out. I'm so impressed with the women that I see. They're doing just the same thing the men are doing. So I'm impressed. So hopefully by next year, your next class,
Yep.
we will see a little bit more increase in the gender.
Yes, ma'am.
Would be lovely to see before I leave council, maybe.
Yes,
Only one question, Chief, and that is, how many cadets do we have now, and the ethnicity of the cadets that you have currently? And
How
how
many-
many, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
How many cadets?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have 6 cadets.
You have 6 cadets and
I'm sorry, 5 cadets.
5. And is that normally every year? Is that the standard 5 every year?
No,
How long is it?
we're slotted for 6 cadets.
Okay.
So I believe in the last recruitment process, one of the cadets wasn't eligible.
So we have 6 positions right now. So we have 5 of them filled. We just lost a cadet a couple months ago. So we do have 1 open position right now. So our goal, when we did a proposal maybe a month ago, was to increase the cadet position to, I believe, 12, 6 part-time, 6 full-time. Right now, we currently have 29 fire explorers, soon to be 30. That includes the 12 females. So our hope is to create that pipeline, and then when we have 30 explorers in only 6 cadet positions, it becomes a bottleneck for us. So,
Okay.
and to answer Councilman Clark's answer in regards to the pipeline, we do not have the facility right now. We're using the training division, but we have partnered up with the police department and use the police athletic league because they do have their own building, the old Quirk Meadow. So we're using
That's why he's in charge of the money.
Say it one more time again.
So we are trying to work on that. I know there's been talks about creating a big complex right where our current training division is at right now, that we share with the police and DPW. But we're doing we're doing what we can with what we have right now. So luckily, police department's been great at sharing their building, and we just continue to keep building it until we get that big, strong complex.
What is the timeline on that?
Unknown at this time. I think they're still in the design phase.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief.
One other thing, ma'am. So we do have 5 female officers. 2 of them are captains, and 3 of them are lieutenants.
Thank you. Councilman Gale?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. I know I've told this story before, but I have some new council colleagues who I don't think have heard this. So, in 2008, I had a fire in our house on Cone Street. And the fire occurred about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. One of Hartford Fire Department's pieces of equipment was going up Whitney Street at the time, saw the smoke. I believe they were headed to some other non-fire call, and I believe the protocol is if you see a fire en route, you're supposed to stop and respond, and they did. Ultimately, all sorts of people responded. The fire was on the roof of our porch, and it extended up into our bedroom. Hartford Fire got there and immediately sent a crew up onto the porch. Of course, brought out hoses. Fire had gotten into the walls, so they have to break the windows in our house, go into the bedroom, start taking walls down to make sure the fire isn't in the walls. At the same time that all that's going on, another crew of the Hartford Fire Department went into the first floor of our house and proceeded to take all the furniture that was in the front of our house and moved it to the back of our house. They rolled up the carpets, they took artwork off the walls, and they brought a tarp in because we had a piano that was too big to move, and they covered the piano with a tarp to protect it from the water that was coming down from the hoses up above. I can't tell you how amazed I was at the effort that was taken to preserve our property. And when the fire was over, and mind you, thankfully, although there was a fair amount of destruction and water, we were okay. House is okay. We're still there. Everything's back to normal. But when it was over, Hartford Fire came in with a couple of trash cans and did what my friend Bob McNair calls a man cleaning. They brought in shovels, and they went to our bedroom, and they scooped up all of the plaster and lath that had been taken down. Very rough cleaning, but they got it out. So I know some of you haven't heard that. I wanted to just express that to tell you my own personal experience with what a wonderful fire department that we have here at Hartford. And so thank you all again for that fine service. It certainly burned into our memories well. As far as questions are concerned, I know you mentioned during your presentation the need for, or the fact that some of your equipment is very old. And I took a look through our capital improvement budget. I see in the capital improvement budget that we have budgeted for renovations to fire station number 9. I didn't see anything in particular in there for equipment, and I'm not sure I see any line items in your budget for replacement of equipment. So I'm wondering what is the current plan? What do we think in terms of when we're going to need this equipment? And what is the expected price tag for some of this equipment, if you know?
Yes, sir. So included in the equipment, we really are talking about apparatuses. And so usually when we get funding for a new apparatus, it comes with the bare minimum. But what we actually want to do is just to have that apparatus fully stocked with the things that we use on a daily basis, and that would help to ensure that, you know, through attrition, like when a piece of equipment breaks, like a hook, or an axe or something of that nature, because our tools do get beat up quite often. But there's some power tools that we use, like circular saws, chainsaws, batteries. We're moving toward battery-operated extrication tools. Those come at a cost. Those batteries are usually have a shelf life of 5 years. And then by the time that shelf life is up, there is a newer version of the product that we use. With the manufacturer of vehicles now, the steel is sometimes stronger, and what we used the previous 5 or 10 years, it's just not cutting it. So, you know, we try to keep up with technology and development of new construction. Also, what we have done last year is new to our rescue technician program, which is structural collapse, because that's been happening across the nation. But even that particular incident comes with a cost of materials and equipment that we don't have in our cash. Swift water is another one. We go on the Connecticut River quite often, but you know, we have the basics. So in order to maintain the highest quality of service, some of that equipment is very costly. So we've been trying to manage it and buy a few things here and there, but some big ticket items they cost a lot.
What's a lot, Chief? I mean, a ladder truck, you know, something,
Yes, sir. So a ladder truck right now was $1.2 million. It's moving closer to the $3 million price tag, whereas our pumpers were 800 to 900,000. They're going up to almost $1 million.
over the next, say, 5 to 10 years, what would you say would be the needs of the Hartford Fire Department with respect to big vehicles?
In the next 5 or 10 years, I'm sure it'll still be apparatuses and, you know, a firehouse, that would be nice, but, I mean, it's just maintaining our state of readiness, and the main component of that is apparatuses. I mean, with the traffic calming measures that's going on in the city, not to mention our roads get ate up every winter and we have to repave them, so that does a lot for wear and tear on our apparatuses. For example, you know, the average lifespan in engine hours is 15,000 hours. Some of our apparatuses well exceed the 15,000 hour mark.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I have one statement and one question. Maybe I'll come up with something else. I don't know. We'll see. So first, I want to acknowledge. You mentioned earlier, you know, some of your staff going to some of the community meetings. I like to acknowledge that I do go to the I Know Neighbors meetings, and oftentimes I do see fire department represented there. At least on the NRC that I tend to go more often, the Southwest, I also always see representation there. So I like to congratulate, you know, your department for being committed to staying engaged with the community. I see it myself when I go to these events, and I think that's a great thing. So I hope that continues and that consistency continues. It is important for the community to see the presence and hear and be able to also ask questions and interact with the department. Aside from that, you mentioned that there's a new class that's coming in, and that's one of the reasons that the overtime under the suppression division went down at the rate of 1.2 million. How many firefighters are coming in on that class?
Right now, we're scheduled to have 15 firefighters come in.
15. Okay, so then that explains, because I was looking at the book, and in April you have 293 sworn staff, and then it goes up to 308, and I was trying to figure out if that's the number that represents, you know, that change in overtime. But then I see that the projection later in the year. And unfortunately, I lost my page, but I see later in the year, I want to say by July, actually sometime early in 2025, the number goes down again to the 290 range of sworn staff. Do you know what would cause that projection to go back down again from 308 to, is it people retiring probably, or attrition?
Yep, attrition, people retiring.
Are there any plans then to kind of fill that back in a timely manner, so that way we don't go back again to the same situation of having to increase over time? You know what I mean? As we are projecting folks leaving, we also kind of and I know that it's not easy because you have to go through a class and there are some set times of when training happens and they graduate. But how many times let me just ask the question differently. How many times cadets graduate? How many sessions are in a year?
So going back to class 23, we pretty much did a class almost every year to try to come up to speed with the numbers. Did we skip a year? I think we skipped 1 year, but we are planning on doing another class. I don't think closer toward the end of fiscal year 25 after February, because what we've learned, that we realized we ran into some issues in doing a winter class. It's more difficult to do a winter class than a summer class, and so summertime is really limited, and that's the optimal time for our training division to catch up on the mandated training for the current membership. So doing it closer to winter or at the end of winter is the optimal time.
Understood. So going back again to the projections that are on the budget book, and just in case for future, I'm referencing to page 22-5 on the book. So December 2024, the number starts going down again, and again we go back again to the number that we are today in April. So those 15, they kind of cancel as far as numbers. Later in the year, beginning of 2025, will that create the same situation where now more overtime is needed, because then we have to wait for that class to graduate before we could fill it in again? So is that the plan, that we're going to have like a little bit of a, more sworn staff during some time of the year, then attrition or retirement creates again that low level, overtime goes up, then we fill it in again, overtime goes down? Is that what we're projecting, that it will look like year over year?
Well, that's not the plan. I mean, if you look at the last couple of classes that we hired about 30 people per class. This particular class, we started out with 24 and graduating with a very low number because of some of the difficulties with this last batch. But our intention is to hire enough folks that the overtime steadies out over the summer, because in summer months a lot of folks take vacation, and so that's when we see a lot. It's really not the overtime, but it's the spike in the 212. But the plan is to hire at least 34 people so we can even out the numbers in overtime.
No, yeah, that will definitely cancel out the retirements and attrition, so
Yeah.
definitely. Thank you. All right, we're going to see if there's any more questions on round two. Councilwoman Rosado?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if, Chief Barco, on the budget book under page 22-2, under item 002, Fire Prevention Division, does that fall under the fire marshals?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, how many fire marshals do you have currently?
We have 18 fire prevention lieutenants.
Out of those 18, I know that last year when we spoke in council, a lot of them were out on workers' comp. How many active fire marshals do you have right now that are here, that are working?
So we have 18 fire prevention lieutenants, we have 2 captains and our fire marshal. And out of the fire prevention lieutenants, 17 are active. There's only one person on injury.
I'm sorry, there's only one person on leave now?
There's only one person on injury.
I can't hear him.
There's only one person on injury.
Out on injury? Okay, okay. That's great. And I know, I looked at Council President, and I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, last year or the year before, you had brought up a good point about a lot of houses in the north end being old houses, and fire marshals had to go out there and do inspections. Are we all caught up with that? Because I know when, I forgot his name, what was our prior chief? He had a huge backlog.
So one of the things we're doing now is we're looking at the total number of buildings that we have in the city, and the way they're categorized is there's some discrepancy, but the short end of it is we're not fully caught up, but we're in a better place than we were last year. Since the addition of the extra fire prevention lieutenants, they've really been hitting the streets and getting the inspections done.
Thank you for that. And now that I am talking about the fire marshal is, I believe it's Deputy Chief Sharif, is he here today?
I'm right here, ma'am.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm saying that because I wanted to put the name with the face with the name, because I usually have some business owners reach out to me, and of course you take care of my office, but I never knew who you were. So I wanted to say thank you for taking care of the issues that come up.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Yes, and Chief, my last congratulations, shout out to you. I think, and I haven't seen all the departments, but so far, the fire department has what I call an equal pie. 35% Hispanics, 32% African American, Black, and 33% Caucasian white. I love seeing that. Thank you. I'm all done, Mr. Chair.
Any questions? Yep. Assistant Majority Leader Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Chief, mentioned in this proposed recommended budget, you have one class that's budgeted for how many people?
Is it 24? 24, sir.
24?
24, yes, sir.
And approximately how much would that equate to as far as costs?
Would that pay for in what?
How much would that be for 24 people?
To run the class, about 240,000.
240,000.
Now, would that help to ease off the attrition rate for next year, next fiscal year?
If we got another 24?
With this budget of 24? No.
It does, a little bit, but it doesn't really, it would affect the 212 more so than the regular overtime.
Okay. So another 24 or half of that would?
Yes, sir. So we have about 20 people that can retire next year. And then, as you know, they'll probably start negotiating contracts this year. And then when that contract is ratified next year, what folks usually do is see what they're gaining or losing, and then they make the decision to retire. So we can potentially have 20 people go next year. And that's why the plan is to actually do a class in February.
Okay. Also, too, with the business case scenarios that you submitted, what's on your wish list that you probably didn't submit?
You'll see. What's the one?
Wish list.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep, so the cadets will probably be the number one.
Cadets, more cadets?
Because the plan is the cadets would solve the overtime problem. One of our thoughts was to, you know, if we had 12 cadets and we trained them all up, through attrition, they were all ready to go. And once a person retires, you just plop them right in there.
So so 12, oh, let's use that number of 12. 12 cadets would be how much?
Oh,
Cost?
yeah.
Yep. approximately, to add that up, it's approximately about 120,000.
120,000? And what's their hourly rate?
That hasn't been determined yet. Currently, I believe they only make, what are they, Captain, about 15?
1569, minimum wage.
15s?
69.
Wow. Okay. So the magic number is 12, give or take?
Yes, sir.
And you would prefer cadets over explorers?
Correct. The cadets are the part-time.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Explorers
Okay,
don't
sorry.
get paid, so.
I know our rates are contractual, but are our rates for firefighters competitive with other municipalities?
That, I couldn't say.
Okay.
But, you know, you ask any firefighter, they need a raise for the amount of work they do. And they'll tell you they haven't had a raise in 6 to 8 years.
Yeah, I did speak with a few firefighters that expressed their grievances because of what we did with the police it was a couple years ago? Yeah, a couple years ago. So I don't know if you can reach out to the fire union president to find out
I can.
what
I
that
can get you
competitive. Okay,
that
thank you,
comparison.
appreciate that. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staying with the cadet sort of pay scale, you know, at $15 an hour, you know, these young kids can go to Costco, make a lot more. What would be the optimal pay scale per hour would you guys recommend?
So the $15 is part-time. That's 20 hours a week. The cadets are part-time employees.
I understand it's 20 hours a week, but, you know, as I said, you know, going to Costco, lugging something around, you know, you can make, is it 19? It's $19.50. I thought it was $20 an hour.
Yep.
You know, so if we want to attract more, you know, young people for being cadets, what would be a reasonable, so you have to compete with the Costco on the other organization like that. So would you have a problem recommending, you know, $20 an hour?
No, ma'am. At a minimum, it should be $20 an hour.
That's what I wanted was to, you know, hear from you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief.
All right, it seems like there are no more questions. So I'd like to thank you for all coming here and presenting and answering all of our questions. We appreciate you guys staying here with us for about an hour and a half. So this concludes this presentation. And in a few minutes, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and we're going to go with emergency service and telecommunications. Everybody stand by for 10 more minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome back. We are now ready to have our second presentation of the day. And at this point, we have the Emergency Service and Telecommunications Department with its Interim Director, Jeffrey Covello. Jeffrey, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. To my left here is Supervisor Stacy Shaw, who is currently assigned to the administrative side of the house. To my right here is Tony Carter. He's in charge of the training program for ES&T. And then this is a senior administrative assistant, Brenda Perez. Ready, Brenda? So our first slide there, Brent, should be the mission statement. So the mission statement for the Emergency Services and Telecommunications, the City of Hartford Department of Emergency Services and Telecommunications core mission is to provide high-quality emergency services communication to police, fire, and emergency medical services personnel and the City of Hartford citizens. We carry this mission out by receiving calls for service, dispatching the appropriate resources. We track, coordinate the information from these calls. We initiate records for all emergency events and enhance the effectiveness, efficiency, and coordination and interoperability of emergency service providers. This is our current organizational structure. You can see here we have quite a few vacancies, which I have listed here. The deputy director, while I'm the interim, the deputy director's position is vacant. We have a senior clerk typist position vacant. We have a project leader IT vacant, a microcomputer technician vacant, and we are currently down 7 positions for dispatchers. You can see here that our chart is pretty tight. We have a deputy director that has basically 5 divisions underneath it. You have the alarm enforcement division, the IT project leader division, that's actually IT department, and then the senior project leader handles all of the radio infrastructure and the current radio infrastructure project. And then you have the public safety communications supervisors, which handle the operations end of the department. And then you have the training coordinator, which I introduced to you earlier, who handles all of the, we do a super robust training program that's never been done in the past that we're doing currently, training large groups at a time. And then we have a quality insurance coordinator underneath him. This next slide here, we didn't use a pie chart to explain our demographics, so I just wanted to make it quick and easy to see there, but we're going to get to a slide later that really spells out how the department's demographics are made up, so we're going to go right past this here. This is what our numbers look like for 2023. For 911 calls, we had 142,692, which is up almost 0.4%. Our administrative calls for 2023 was 335,000, which is up 8%, for a total call volume of 478,592 calls, which is overall up 5.61%. So you can see just from 22 to 23, I came here in February of 2023, and when I arrived, there was 14 dispatchers working, handling 453,000 calls for service. Just in this short time period here, we're up 25,000 calls already. So it doesn't seem to be, it's trending up, and that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. The way those calls break out is for 2023, we had 112,741 for police, 24,880 for fire suppression, and then this is again the fire department where they also respond to medical calls, 8,384. The ambulance services totaled 39,272 for a total of 193,659. And what you can see there is when you take those numbers, and these aren't perfect numbers because, you know, fire and EMS often co-respond to calls, right? Especially for A calls, for high acuity calls. So some of this numbers is not going to be completely accurate, but it's close. That's roughly 50,000 calls that come in on non-emergency lines that translate into emergency calls for service, right? So that would be, we have a lot of instances here in the city where like doctor's offices will call in and they'll say they'll have a patient with chest pain, and even though it didn't come in on a 911, it requires a 911 level response from the dispatcher, populating the call for service so that it goes to it's routed out to the right emergency responders. So if we can go, okay, so that basically sums up our numbers for call volume. One of the other big things that's going on in ES&T right now, and I'm just getting spun up on this to a point where I feel comfortable. I spent a couple hours with, this is the radio infrastructure project. Chief Barkle talked about earlier that circa 2016, it started to become a thing. I talked to Blue Wing today again about it. It was about 3 years in the making this project, and then it didn't kick off and become live until about 2019. It's made up of these three systems, radio system, microwave network, and site upgrades. What I could tell you that the latest information we have is that everything is on schedule. The end of this year, they'll be testing the radio system. The beginning of next year, they'll be going with cutover live. So it's on schedule, and most importantly, it's under budget as well. This is a breakout of the staffing, and I think this is important to make a distinction here too. While we are, we have 38 dispatchers, 19 are fully trained ETDs, fully certified, and they can operate autonomously. And then we have 4 emergency telecommunicator call takers, which they are sort of relegated to only taking 911 calls, fully trained and certified. And then we have 15 trainees that are in various stages of training. So while you would look at that number and think that we've doubled the workforce, the problem is that's not accurate, because you have people sitting together, working together, learning all the various positions in the 911 center. So from time to time, when they're not training, they can help alleviate some of the high call volume, but that also would retard the training program. So we do the absolute best we can to keep them moving forward. With that, there's 7 openings. And I'm happy to report that with the 7 openings, we also have 35 candidates wanting to be dispatchers with our city, which is, that's a great, when I first got here, we were getting, 2, 3, 4, 5 people interested at a time. And that's a credit to the city, because it was around that time that the pay became more competitive, and so we're getting a bigger pool of candidates. And then I was just notified by HR, they're testing again on May 1st and May 2nd, so that number is actually going to increase. That's the last list that was certified from HR, so 35 candidates for 7 openings. I also wanted to make a notation about the HEART team. I know that's near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. I could tell you that we were just discussing this about a week ago, myself and Patricia McIntosh. She asked me to speak at a Central Connecticut State University to discuss with law enforcement the benefit of this program, and I can't say enough about it. I will tell you that, being in mainly law enforcement, but public safety for 30 years, and so has Tony. The two of us have both been on that phone, along with Stacy, longer than even us. And the fact that we were able to now actually give people, some other service other than just talking to them on the phone and giving them a shelter to call, or, some emergency services, whether it's a suicide prevention hotline or some such thing. The fact that we're able to actually send people out to these folks that are in need, that helplessness that dispatchers feel when you get there, this takes it away. It's kind of amazing program. I can't be any more supportive of it. I'll tell you that CRT to date, these are numbers that are good as of March 2024, 2,345 calls since we launched. So those are calls that maybe the police would have responded, but I'm not exactly sure what they could have done for these people, whereas these people are now going very specifically to calls that they can really very specifically give help to, whereas there's no other service, whether it be fire or police, that could help these people. So that's a really good thing. here's some strategic initiatives. We're looking to develop and improve efficiencies through technology. We're trying to enhance staffing and workforce development, ensure service resilience and optimization, implement processes improvements, and let me tell you what a couple of those mean to me. So one of the things that we have been sort of exploring which is no cost to the city because we already have the infrastructure to do this, is we've been discussing utilizing an automated attendant. All of your surrounding towns here, every one of them, if you call a non-emergency line for West Hartford, East Hartford, you'll receive an automated attendant for non-emergency calls. And through some research, most recently, I could tell you that some of these non-emergency calls that are basically strangling the center so that they are not able to answer 911 calls, or they're not able to answer the 911 call in the time frame for which is actually relegated by law, which requires us to answer 90% of our calls within 10 seconds, and we're nowhere near that threshold. My vision is that if we could throttle down some of the non-emergent calls and put them to the right people, and I'm not saying a whole bunch of options, but I'm saying there's a couple of things that, whether it's teleserve or booking or records division, there's things that have nothing to do with ES&T, maybe nothing to do with police, fire, EMS, but it's very, very strictly related to some administrative service in one of these agencies that we serve. That may help us get these calls answered sooner, not miss calls, not have abandoned calls, not have calls roll over, and that's really important to me. So we've also, as part of the training coordinator's job, we've been trying to find more classes that are beyond extremely extensive training that we do for our dispatchers, including dispatcher response to active killers. We've been doing targeted training for supervisors, for internal affairs, for accreditation management. We've sent supervisors to the Association of Public Safety for supervisor first line training. And what I'm trying to do ultimately is collate all this training into us becoming a certified dispatch center. You know that we just spoke about it with the fire department. They're internationally accredited. The police department is accredited by CALIA. And the bottom line is that, to me, this is the next logical step for ES&T to also become accredited to professionalize the services that we deliver. This is how our budget shook out. I could tell you that it's the 1.3% is, those are all driven by contractual salary adjustments, and then we had a lease agreement with Weathersfield, and it should also say Trumbull up there. Trumbull Street in Hartford, we have two tower sites that cost us X amount of dollars to keep them up and running, but the Trumbull site goes away next year once the radio project cuts over, so we only have that one agreement with Keller, so that had to be increased. And then lastly, we have a couple of breakouts for you. This is our management breakout for our staff composition. You can see that 7% are City of Hartford residents, 93% are not, 13% are Hispanic, 27% African American, 53% white, and 7% other. We have 47% female, 50% male, and then all employees altogether for the whole agency is 19% City of Hartford, 81% non-City of Hartford, 12% Hispanic, 41% African American, 43% Caucasian, and 4% other. We have a predominantly female workforce. You can see 67% female with 33% male. That is the presentation that I have for you tonight, and I turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Covello. And normally I ask my colleagues to ask questions, but I know that my colleague Councilwoman Rosado is going to ask these questions, so I'm going to ask it before she does. So it was a little surprising, right, when I see on the demographics that out of all your employees, only 12% are Hispanics in a city that more than half are considered themselves Hispanic. If I look at the budget book, it says that there's about 57 FTEs, right? I know that there's some vacancies, but it's a total of 57 FTEs, which translates into about only 6 to 7 staff that are of Hispanic descent. Most of them, none of them, I mean, although you do have some percentage here under management, at least when I looked at the org chart, I couldn't pinpoint where they are in the leadership scale, because when I looked at the names and the actual ethnicity, I don't see where that Hispanic management falls, unless you're considering administrative assistants as part of management. Is that the case?
I do, sir. You're looking at the management right here.
Okay, so that's management, but not necessarily leadership. It's more like in the administrative functions. Not only we don't have any then leadership then in that particular case, or maybe very few that may be considered Hispanics, but then when you look at the 38, although you should 38, is it 38 that you have on dispatchers, or 45? I saw
Well, there's
numbers.
38 currently.
38.
We have 45 budgeted positions.
Budgeted because the grant
Yes, sir.
pays for 6 or 7 of them as well.
I believe it's 8 total.
Okay, so that leaves very little room for Hispanics being dispatchers, especially none of the 7 supervisors are Hispanics either, of the dispatcher section. When I look at your org chart, none of those 7 are Hispanics either. And I'm going back to this page on the presentation. You have 7 supervisors there, and you describe their ethnicity and their gender there. So my question is, one of your focus areas or your strategic initiatives is enhanced staffing and workforce development. With that premise that we may not have as many Hispanics, or we don't have as many Hispanics, and with hundreds of thousands of phone calls that come through, I'm sure that there's quite a bit of them that requires that second language. How do you manage that, and what is your plan to hopefully mitigate that gap in the needs?
Understood, sir. Well, I have a couple of responses to that. One is, this presentation was developed with Brenda Perez directly. Even though she does not hold the title of manager, there's typically a line out her door daily for guidance with policies and procedures and payroll and whatnot. So she does hold, while it's not a leadership position by your definition, I'll just tell you that she's definitely a leader of this department. The second part is, as far as handling calls that come in with language barriers, we do have a language line. So you're right, there is a high, I couldn't tell you an exact number, and there is a high degree of calls that come in, Spanish-speaking persons, and we use the language line to break down those barriers. As far as hiring people specifically based on ethnicity, I could tell you that this last class that we hired was done directly by Anthony Carter and I, and all I could tell you is that it's a super diversified group, including a couple of Spanish speaking women, and all we could do is take the best candidates that come forward and push them through to become dispatchers. If we're fortunate enough to get that diversity that you're looking for, if we're fortunate enough to get Spanish speaking persons, that's great. I don't know that we could do anything more specific than that. I could tell you that changing the culture in that place, when I got here, we use the word toxic. What's happened now is, the fact is we have really turned around the whole culture in that dispatch center, and now personnel that are in there are actually telling friends and family to apply for the job. So, I mean, that's the best that we could do, is treat the employees right, treat the citizens right that need our services, and that's what I'm doing.
Thank you. I'll open up the floor. Any questions? Councilwoman Rosado.
Hi. I
Hello,
have
ma'am.
to ask you, were you a former cop, or you look like some?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm not crazy. Okay, good. Okay, so first of all, thank you for this presentation. There was a discrepancy here while I was looking at the numbers with the race, what was reported here, just minimum, but which are the more updated numbers? The ones that are here, or the ones
For which
that-
one, ma'am?
On the race ethnicity, when she brought it up, I think, or maybe I was wrong, I saw on the screen, would you be able to pull it up again? Page 11?
So one was management exclusive, and the other one was exclusive to the rest of the personnel.
Okay. So is it African-American 27% or 41?
So for all employees, 41%. For all employees of ES&T. For this management group, 27%.
Thank you. Okay, so Councilman Hernandez asked a lot of my questions. Let me just get my thoughts together. So, how long have you been in your position?
For 45 days.
Okay,
I was the deputy director before that for 2 years.
wonderful, okay. So walk me through this, and I guess what has me a little bit off is this chart here, where it has black female, white male. The only Hispanics here that I see is Brenda Perez and Vanessa Morales. And so, when you say you have, I don't know, 13% Hispanics, what would be the 13%? 3 employees, 4?
That's the management one? Yeah, that's the management one, ma'am. And that's derived from whatever they put on their application, whatever your demographic declaration was, that's where it was gleaned from.
Okay, so have you encountered any issues that you have a caller, a 911 caller that only speaks Spanish? All the lines are full, let's say, right, with other 911 calls. What do you do with that person who's in distress that speaks Spanish, who has someone that only speaks English?
So we have a language line. I mean, I can assure you that Tony Carter and I do not speak Spanish. Well, we both have been here when there's no other staff to answer 911s. And you routinely get Spanish callers because of the demographics of the city, as Mr. Hernandez said. And there's a language line that we pay for that allows you that once you've made you're able to ascertain what language that they're looking to speak, we're able to put them into a queue and bring in that person who speaks that language, and then we can communicate through that person with the caller. It happens pretty routinely.
And how long does that call take?
I'm sorry?
How long does that call take? By the time you connect a language, I used Language Link before.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean,
I guess eventually the goal, and
I
I'm
would
not
say
gonna put you in that spot, you're obviously new in this position, and, I'm happy to hear that, other employees are telling, other people that they know to apply for the job, but it would be nice to see more Spanish-speaking individuals to reflect the city, so that we don't have to use Language Link, which is another added cost. So we'll see what it looks like next year.
I concur with you, ma'am. I concur with you, and I will tell you that in the past, which is not currently the case, they actually paid a stipend to those people that spoke, that were bilingual. So, I suppose that's something you could look at doing in the future. Currently, this is what we have for staff.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Bilodeau?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation, and it was lovely to visit your department and see how the department runs, and it has helped me better understand the budget and your needs, so thank you for that time that you spent
Thank
with
you.
us. Couple questions. When will the 15 trainees reach fully trained status?
We currently have 2 training classes in. Class 2301, which started in August of last year, has 5 members left, and their probation is up in May, but that can be extended by 3 months. Class 2401 began in January of this year, January 16th specifically. There are 10 members there, and their probation will be up in September of this year, which again can be extended 3 months to December.
Thank you. And the second question is, I know you said that I believe the average call answer time should be about 10 seconds for non-emergency. What is it right now with your current staffing levels?
So the state does the numbers quarterly. The last quarter, it's of 2023, we're at 74%. Now, I was able to spot check periodically throughout this current quarter, and we hover up around 80% and then drop back down. But remember what I said earlier is that even though it looks on paper we have twice as much staff as we did when I got here, a lot of the time that staff is training so they don't augment the floor.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate that.
Assistant Majority Leader Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Thank you for your presentation.
Yes, sir.
I know you're new to this current role, but not new to the department, and there has been quite some change, which I'm glad, on a facelift, I would say, of the department, and a new turn as far as eliminating that toxicity. So, understanding that you got a new class, and I'm glad to hear about the new class, is there anything that I would say, you would like to see, as far as any additions that may not reflect in this budget?
I mean, the thing is, we have 5 personnel right now that are, 2 are eligible to leave currently, they could retire, and another 3 are eligible to retire in the next 2 years. So, I mean, that's 100 years of experience about to walk out the door. And so, I mean, more staff is better. If we could have more staff, especially because it's so complex, the training to get people through the whole program. You know, fire needs to know about fire's business, and police need to know about police's business, and EMS providers need to know about their business, but our folks need to know a little bit about all of the business. It's super complex training. And not only that, we have the state-of-the-art CAD, and we're about to have a state-of-the-art radio system, so that just increases the complexity. So more staff is better, so we could constantly train. That would be a wish list.
Okay. How many years of service are those particular individuals that are reaching attrition?
So the 2 supervisors are over 20 years, and the 3 emergency telecommunicator dispatchers are coming up on their 25. They're all 22, 23 years. They're all coming up on their 25 year. And I can tell you from speaking with them, they will be leaving on the day they hit 25 years.
So, all right, Rich, I don't blame you. That union, is that 1716?
Yes, sir. And HMIA, the supervisors are in HMIA.
Okay. I would say, I have a friend who is an emergency dispatcher, and I was trying to lure them in here into Hartford. They don't want to come. However, I was asking them some questions as to how their system is, and they only, in the municipality that they work in, they only service that municipality, only police. They don't do fire or anything else. Asking them how the office environment is and everything, I would say Hartford stands alone as a state-of-the-art emergency services and telecommunications department regarding the equipment, regarding the workplace environment. And I want to say I applaud you and your team for working to keep that up because I'm thinking other 911 call centers are similar to ours, and they are not, which is very alarming. So thank you very much for the work that you are continuing to do and you stepping into this role, into your team, and we are here to support you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Council President Surgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me start by thanking you for taking the job 2 years ago with the City of Hartford. I truly can relate to Councilman Amilcar and Councilwoman Molly regarding the Latino and the bilingual. But one thing they don't know is 2 years ago, how dire need this department was in. When people were miscarriaging, because of the overtime they had to mandatory work, that this city was put at risk. So I commend and I support, okay? But let's be real here. This man and this team, what it has brought this city to in the last 2 years, is heartbreaking. When 90% of their staff or 70% of their staff are women, and they had to mandatory, the amount of overtime they had to mandatory work because there was no staff to cover this city. When somebody calling, whether you speak Spanish or you speak English, you could get a police and fire person to come to your house. So this is emotional for me, because I talked to some of these women who lost children, because none of you all was around that table when they called and complained. So thank you. It's what you have done to bring this department to where it is truly amazing. The camaraderie in the staff that is there now in comparison to 2 years ago, it's a whole different environment. I would like to see more, bilingual people working. But what I really want to see is that when anyone in the city pick up the telephone and call the ESNT department, they receive the service, whether they speak Spanish or English. They receive the service that they need in the city. And without staffing of what this department was in 2 years ago, I think you ladies probably know more than I do. But when they reached out to me, and the staff reached out to me 2 years ago, it was heartbreaking. Okay? So thank you for where you are now. Thank you for making that department a department to be proud of. People actually come to work, and they want to come to work now, except for parking. We got to work on the parking thing. All right? All right, we'll work on the parking thing. Can't promise everything. They can't leave and go for a break. So what they do is they have chips and sodas and whatever else there just for a break. I think our community don't understand the service your department provides to us. And I find it to be a very stressful job. I know I couldn't deal with the stress, but what you guys do is unbelievable. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you all for the service that you provide to the residents and keeping them safe in this city.
Thank you.
So I have no budget question. I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Gill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm looking at your numbers, and I see that in the last year we had 57 positions that were funded through the general budget and 9 positions that were grant funded. And in the current budget, it's the same number, 57 and 9. But I see in your numbers, in your presentation, that there's a fairly large drop in the amount of grant funding that you're receiving or expecting to receive. $441,000, it appears, from your handout. And I'm just wondering, what was that, what is that funding?
I'll defer some DSET money? Yeah. I'm going to defer. No, please do.
Good evening, council members. A large part of the, let's make sure I'm getting the years correct here. So the 1.1 million, a large portion of that is the anticipated final payments of, from grant proceeds that supported the radio project that was described earlier. The 664, not all of that, but the vast majority of that 660,000 is the recurring grant that we get from the state. It's the E911 subsidy grant. So that's reflected in both 24 and 25, and the delta between the two is largely attributable to spending down the balance of that grant to pay for the radio project. So it's not really a reduction in the grant that supports the staff.
Got it. So it's equipment more than staffing.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
And I missed this, and I apologize. You made reference to our response time being 75 to 80%, but I'm not clear of what. So, is that
Fair question,
10
sir.
seconds is the
So-
goal?
The national standard is to answer 90% of your calls within 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
The state law, the state standard currently is 10 seconds. So they want you to answer 90% of your 911 calls in 10 seconds. We answer, as of the last quarter, 74%.
Within 10 seconds.
Correct.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no
Thank you. Any additional questions from any of my council colleagues? No? Councilwoman Rosado?
Could you give me 1 second, please?
I will make this statement, though. I remember, maybe I want to say a few public safety committee meetings ago. I can't remember, maybe 2 or 3 ago. You had a presentation, you spoke, and I do remember that conversation about the change in staffing and the culture in the department. And we were all very excited to hear that your leadership has made a huge difference in that department. So I would like to potentially clarify that my encouragement is to find ways to continue to highlight your marketing, hiring practices to continue to diversify the staffing in order to be better prepared to the demands of our community, right? You were about to answer a question, but then the conversation went to a different way. Do you know what's that time of delay for the language line between?
I can only tell you anecdotally from using it,
Yeah.
it's fairly quick.
We're talking about seconds.
Yeah, yes.
It doesn't go to a minute. It's just somewhere in
No.
between. Okay.
No.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilwoman Rosado?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't know, it's Mr. Covello, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the answer when Councilman Clark asked for the wish list? Did you ask him that question? What was it that he said? More staff? Okay. And again, how many vacancies do you have in your department?
7.
7. So with those 7, additional staffing?
Oh, I'm saying beyond the 7. If we had, unlimited funds and you were gifting me something, then I would say what we could do to further this division.
And did you tell him how much more staffing?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
How much more staffing would you feel that, not like you won the lottery, but enough to say, this would not put so much stress on all of the employees?
I would just tell you that I could justify 54 employees. That's what I could justify. Now, whether or not I got those, that's something different, right? And we will figure out a way, because we've done it in the past with less people, to get the job done, because these people have been doing it regardless. So I could justify 54. Any additional staff is appreciated.
Okay. And so I wasn't able to do the tour. I couldn't do it, but I would like to do it in the near future if you decide to do a second one.
You're invited, ma'am.
Thank you. And so my other question is, this is a 9 to 5, 8-hour shift for everyone. You don't do three days in a row, 3 days off?
No, the shifts are all contractual. The only thing I could tell you that we did do when I first arrived there, and it wasn't at my behest, it was already in place when I got there, was 12-hour shifts.
12-hour shifts.
So they were working 12-hour shifts just to man the center. And our first goal was to get them off 12-hour shifts, right? Because again, 67% of our workforce is females. A lot of those are single moms, and they're being held against their will because we have mandatory holds. And in my tenure here, several very qualified candidates have quit because they just couldn't do. They could work 40 hours. They couldn't work 41 hours. They had family and other obligations. And so people who are very competent, very capable, and it's a loss for our agency and for the city, had to leave for that fact. So the first thing we did was try to get enough staff to get off those 12-hour shifts and return to 8 hours. That was our first goal.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to have you mention something when we went on the tour. One thing you mentioned to us was, some people call the direct number to the police department to, 757
4,000.
4000, and some people call 911.
Correct.
And I want you to tell us the difference, because you're still getting the calls. Is the reimbursement, how the recording of either calling the 4000 number or calling the 911 directly?
I'm sorry, rephrase that question, ma'am?
So when we were on the tour, you mentioned that if you call 911, there is the
Oh, I know what you're...
the reimbursement, or not reimbursement, however it's, explain it to us.
Well, for us, the complexity of the call kind of goes up when you don't call 911, right? When you call 911, we can track you a couple different ways by virtue of the next generation 911. We could see your Annie Alley. We could see what number you're calling from, what location. If you call from a cell phone, we have Rapid SOS that can pinpoint your location. It could give you elevation. I could tell you're at this location, you're on the 3rd floor, right? So it gives us, we have all this robust systems in place when you call 911. When you call the direct number with a similar emergency, all of that is out the window, and it's that call, even though it's not on 911, is a super complex call, which goes back to the whole point about the training has to be robust to protect the citizen that's in danger in the city from suit when we drop the ball, which we don't want to do. So those calls, you would think they're simpler, but they're actually extremely complex. And those are, like I said, that's that 50,000 call number I told you that didn't come in on 911, but some talented person has to figure out what the caller needs, where is the caller. It's much more difficult.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you. Just want you to explain to a lot of our residents watch this, believe it or not, and knowing that difference and the reporting back from the 911 or the 757 number, I thought somehow the recording of those, how many calls you got from 911, give you a certain sort of, I'm not sure if it's
Monetarily? You mean monetarily? 'Cause
Yeah,
that
to the
used to be the
state.
case.
Okay.
It's now driven, it's per capita driven, I'm almost positive. The numbers, the reimbursement numbers that the councilman was talking about used to be driven by your 911 numbers.
Right.
Now it's driven by your, per capita, who you serve.
The number of calls now.
Not the number of calls, but the population you
The
serve.
population you serve,
Yes, it
okay.
used to be driven by numbers. That's probably what I said that confused you.
Yep.
If we were driven by numbers, we would have a much larger reimbursement.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Gale.
Thank you. Forgot to ask earlier about the automated attendant that you mentioned. Would that be on those non-911 calls?
Correct. And with the understanding that, much like all these other cities around us, if you call that number inadvertently, and this would be, all of this has not been worked out, but this is my vision based on current staffing situation, is that in multiple languages, Spanish and English, that if you call this number and it's an emergency, we tell you to hang up and dial 911. But if it's not an emergency and you're looking for ordinary services that could be routed through, a minute or two of waiting for the, a list to be read to you. If you want booking, press 2. If you want teleserve, press 3. That would at least, and then ultimately, if you don't select, and this is what I'm working out with our phone engineers, if you don't select anything, and we only have 5 choices, it rolls you back into the center. And the theory being that we at least throttle down those calls that are non-emergent so our staff could focus on emergent calls.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So this concludes this presentation. We would like to thank you all for coming here and being here since like 5:30. So thank you very much for hanging here with us.
Thank you, sir.
It was a great presentation, a lot of wealth of information. We appreciate you guys coming here and waiting all this time to make your presentation. I'd like to take the opportunity at this time to let our audience know that next week we will continue with our budget, department budget presentation, starting on Tuesday with the Hartford Police Department, followed on Wednesday by the Health and Human Services, Metro Hartford Innovation Services, and then on Thursday we will have the Development Service Department. So next week we have a full agenda, Tuesday through Thursday. And that will conclude our meeting tonight. Our committee meeting has been adjourned.